Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Myself Yuvraj and now you are watching the English figure. So friends, today we will talk about Rani Lakshmibai. So let's start. Rani Lakshmibai was born on 19 November 1828 in the town of Varanasi into a Marathi Brahmin family. She was named Manikarnika Tambe and was nicknamed Manu. Her father was Moropant Tambe and her mother was Bhagirathi Sapre. Her parents came from Maharashtra. Her mother died when she was of 4 years. Her father was the commander of the war of Kalyan Front. Her father worked for Peshwa Bajirao II of Bithur district. The Peshwa called her Chavli, which means playful. She was educated at home, able to read and write, and was more independent in her childhood than others of her age. Her studies include shooting, horsemanship, and fencing with her childhood friends Nana Sahib and Tatya Tope. Rani Lakshmibai contrasted many of the cultural expectations for women in India's society at this time. Rani Lakshmibai was accustomed to riding on horseback by escort between the palace and the temple, though sometimes she was carried in a palanquin. Her horses include Sarangi, Pawan, and Badal. According to historians, she rode Badal when escaping from the fort in 1858. Her palace, the Rani Mahal, has been converted into a museum. It houses collection of archaeological remains of the period between the 9th and 12th centuries AD. Manikarnika was married to the Maharaja of Jhasi, Gangadhar Rao Niwalkar, in May 1842 and was afterward called Rani Lakshmibai in honor of the Hindu goddess Lakshmi and according to the Maharashtrian tradition of woman being given a new name after marriage. In September 1851, she gave birth to a boy later named Damodar Rao, who died 4 months after birth. The Maharaja adopted a boy whose name was Anand Rao, the son of Gangadhar Rao cousin, who was renamed Damodar Rao on the day before the Maharaja died. The adoption was is in the presence of the British political officer who was given a letter from the Maharaja instructing that the child be treated with respect and that the government of Jhansi should be given to his widow for her lifetime. After the death of Maharaja in November 1853, because Damodar Rao was an adopted son, the British East India Company under Governor General Lord Dalhousie applied the doctrine of lapse, rejecting Damodar Rao's claim to the throne and annexing the state to its territories. When she was informed of this, she carried out "I shall not surrender my Jhansi." In March 1854, Rani Lakshmibai was given an annual pension of Rs 60,000 and ordered to leave the palace and the fort. Being of the rebellion, on 10th May 1857, the Indian rebellion started in Meerut. When news of the fighting reached Jhansi, the Rani asked the British political officer Captain Alexander Skinny for permission to raise a body for armed men for her own protection. Skinny agreed to this. The city was relatively calm in the midst of the religious unrest, but the Rani conducted a Haldi Kumkum ceremony with pomp in front of all the women of Jhansi to provide assurance to her subjects in the summer of 1857 and to convince them that the British were cowards and not to be afraid of them. Until this point, Rani Lakshmibai was reluctant to rebel against the British. In June 1857, rebels of the 12th Bengal Native Infantry seized the Star Fort of Jhansi containing the treasure and magazine, and after pressuring the British to lay down their arms by promising them no harm, broke their word and massacred 40 to 16 European officers of the garrison along with their wives and children's. The Rani involvement in this massacre is still a subject of debate. An army Dr. Thomas Lowe wrote after the rebellion, characterizing her as the Jezebel of India, the young Rani upon whose head rested the blood of the slain. 4 days after the massacre, the sepoys left the Jhasi, having obtained a large sum of money from the Rani and having threatened to blow up the palace where she lived. Following this, as the only source of authority in the city, the Rani left obliged to assume the administration and wrote to Major Erskine, commissioner of the Saugar division, explaining the event which had led her to do so. On 2nd July, Erskine wrote in reply requesting her to manage the district for the British government until the arrival of a British superintendent. The Rani forces defeated an attempt by the mutineers to assert the claim to the throne of a rival prince, Sadasiv Rao, nephew of Maharaja Gangadhar Rao, who was captured and imprisoned. There was then an invasion of Jhansi by the forces of Company allies Orcha and Datia. Their intention, however, was to divide Jhansi between themselves. The Rani appealed to the British for aid, but it was now believed by the Governor General that she was responsible for the massacre, and no reply was received. From August 1857 to January 1858, Jhansi under the Rani's rule was at peace. The British had announced that troops would be sent there to maintain control, but the fact that none arrived strengthened the position of a party of her advisers who wanted independence from British rule. When the British forces finally arrived in March, they found it well defended, and the fort had heavy guns which could fire over the town and nearby countryside. According to the source, Hugh Rose, commanding the British forces, demanded the surrender of the city. If this was refused, it would be destroyed. The same sources claims that after due deliberation, the Rani issued a proclamation, "We fight for independence." In the words of Lord Krishna, we will, if we are victorious, enjoy the fruits of victory. If defeated and killed on the field of battle, we shall surely earn glory and salvation. Other sources, for example, have no mention of a demand for surrender. She defended Jhansi against British troops when Sir Hugh Rose besieged Jhansi on 23rd March 1858. The bombardment of Jhansi began on 24th March but was met by heavy return fire and the damaged defences were repaired. The defenders sent appeals for help to Tatya Tope. An army of more than 20,000 headed by Tatya Tope was sent to relieve Jhansi, but they failed to do so. When they fought the British on 31st March, during the battle with Tatya Tope forces, part of the British forces continued the siege, and by 2nd April it was decided to launch an assault by a breach in the walls. 4 columns assaulted the defences at different points, and those attempting to scale the wall came under heavy fire. 2 other columns had already entered the city and were approaching the palace together. Determined resistance was encountered in every street and in every room of the palace. Street fighting continued into the following day, and no quarter was given even to women and children. The Rani withdrew from the palace to the fort, and after taking counsel, decided that since resistance in the city was unless she must leave and join either Tatya Tope or Rao Sahib, Nana Sahib's nephew. In fight to Gwalior, the leaders were Rani of Jhansi, Tatya Tope, the Nawab of Banda, and the Rao Sahib fled once more. They came to Gwalior and joined the Indian force who now held the city. They moved on the Gwalior intending to occupy the strategic Gwalior fort, and the rebel forces occupied the city with opposition. The rebels proclaimed Nana Sahib as Peshwa of a revived Maratha domain, with Rao Sahib as his governor in Gwalior. The Rani was unsuccessful in trying to pressure the other rebel leaders to prepare to defend Gwalior against a British attack, which she expected would come soon. General Rose's force took Morar on 16 June and then made a successful attack on the city. The British captured the city of Gwalior after 3 days. In the British report of this battle, Hughes Rose commented that Rani Lakshmibai is personable, clever, and beautiful, and she is the most dangerous of all Indian leaders. Rose reported that she had been buried with great ceremony under a tamarind tree under the rock of Gwalior, where I saw her bones and ashes. Her tomb is in Phool Bagh area of Gwalior. 20 years after her death, colonial Malaysian wrote in the history of the Indian. So friends, if you have watched this video, so please like, share and subscribe to my channel, and remember to hit the bell icon for daily updates. Thank you.